Time to wake up. It's Saturday morning. Find some milk and cereal. Grab a bowl and spoon. No, a bigger spoon. Head to the living room and take a seat on the floor. While Joseph and Chris present to you Saturday Morning Cartoon!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoon Boom. This is a show where we wake up with the Saturday morning sun, plop down in the living room for the big bowl of sugary cereal, and watch all your favorite cartoons, both old and new. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Chris.
And with us today,
Shaddai.
Shaddai. Hi, Shaddai.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Shaddai.
Shaddai.
Shaddai has been
Shaddai
with the network
Yeah.
for a very long time.
Yes.
So
Very original.
anyone who's listened to any other show is familiar with Shaddai.
Yes.
And her ways.
This really old network of like a week.
Wait, so now I need to know, since this is a Saturday morning thing and kids might be listening, does this mean I need to be rated G?
Generally, yes.
We try
usually
to be.
Okay.
bleep out the curse words, but
All
since
right,
I don't
all
want to edit
I
this,
tend to struggle. Anyone that listens to the show knows that I have a little bit of trouble
Mhm.
not saying
I can
things.
totally do it,
But
I'm
we
good, but
Yeah.
we
I
tend
edit
to-
out Chris a lot.
Well, for
Yeah.
this specific cartoon that we just watched, that
is
was
rated R.
Rated R.
So
Yes.
we'll say this podcast is going to be rated R for anybody
Yeah.
listening.
mainly because we don't feel like editing that much.
that also, but
specifically 100%.
But because we're at Comic-Con, we're at San Diego Comic-Con right now. We're
Yeah.
literally sitting on the floor of our hotel room
after
of 5
viewing.
people
Yeah.
in one room and doing this podcast, and we are trying to put it up as quick as we can, so we're not going to take a lot of time to edit. So.
no, we don't have time to edit. And it's the movie's rated R, so kids shouldn't be listening to this anyway. I don't think kids listen to us. Anyway.
Speaking of, what did we watch?
Well, anybody who's read the title and clicked on this probably knows that we watched Batman: The Killing Joke from 2016.
Mhm.
It is from 2016. It's from today.
It's from today.
We were
saw
at the world premiere.
world premiere.
We were that special.
We're that lucky. We paid good money to go
Only
to
a
San Diego
s-
Comic-Con
Yeah,
to watch.
only a select
Yeah.
4,000 something people
4,200
got
Yeah.
to watch this. Which I guess in the grand scheme, if you think about the world population, that's still a very minute group to see it, but still, it was a fairly decent crowd.
It
But
was very decent.
but we were pretty privileged to be among the first to ever lay eyes on this.
Right. So with Batman: The Killing Joke, Chris, who are some of the cast and crew that went along with this?
Okay, so the basic crew you would come to expect from a Batman animated cartoon. So we had Kevin Conroy voicing Batman, the great Kevin Conroy. He's the person,
best Batman
Yes.
ever.
Definitive.
the person I hear in my head when I read any Batman comic.
True.
Fantastic. And he did a bumper for us a long time ago for Nerds on Tap, one of our other shows, and I got to voice Alfred, and it was really fun because then I can say that I voiced something with Kevin Conroy, even though it was not at the same time.
And he didn't know about it.
Yeah, and he didn't know. And then we had Ray Wise was voicing Commissioner Gordon. I love Ray Wise. He was in Twin Peaks. He was in Reaper, as I've probably mentioned before. Actually, in one of our last episodes, I mentioned that show because Tyler Labine, who voiced Hunk from Voltron, was also one of the main characters of that same show. So
And Tyler Labine also was in Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
yes,
That's where you would know him from, Shaddai.
so
That's a
good.
great show.
And
movie.
then we have Tara Strong voicing Barbara Gordon, Batgirl. And my God, did she do an amazing job in this one. Holy
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
stuff. Holy stuff.
Holy stuff.
I'm going to try so hard not to do it, but and
Make up a word.
Yeah,
We did that one time.
Go Robin style. Like, holy Toledo, Batman.
holy snickerdoodles.
Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness.
Holy snickerdoodles, Batman.
You did have a snickerdoodle
I
cookie.
ate a snickerdoodle cookie
Yeah.
given to me by the cousin of Doug Jones.
It's been great. It's been good. A good evening.
We'll have to talk about Doug's cousin, but anyway. Then the final cast member I want to mention, of course, is the fantastic Mark Hamill as the Joker. And good Lord, like, I mean, everybody did a great job in this, but Mark Hamill,
Oh yeah.
oh my God. Like,
Chilling.
it was the best performance I think I've ever heard in animation. Everyone knows that he's great. And what was fun is, so before we saw in the movie, they did a quick panel and they brought everyone out that worked on it. Mark couldn't be there, but he called the moderator who put his iPhone up to the microphone so that he could actually talk to the crowd, and it was hilarious and it was awesome at the same time.
Yeah, because we got some Joker from that too.
Yes.
Albeit from a phone through a microphone to the crowd, but it was still good.
It was really funny too because they totally played it as like Mark was talking, and then he was like, "Hang on, there's someone else that wants to talk to you," and then he was doing the Joker voice. So it was kind of fun that he played it as two different people.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really cool.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
So on the panel, we had
Our voice actors,
mhm,
along with the people overseeing, which was
we had Bruce Timm,
Bruce Timm.
Of course.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, Sam Liu, who's a director.
And then Brian Azzarello.
of course,
Brian
the
Azzarello, the writer for the film.
Yes.
Whereas in the book, it was done by Alan Moore.
right in 1988. Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
So yeah, this is based on that story, and when they approach stories like this, there's always a fear that they're going to stray too far from the source material. And in this case, they did and they didn't. They added to it. They added some padding, but I think that it was necessary padding, and it really did help to move the story along and keep it in a movie format without making it too short.
Right. And not just the padding, too. They added this whole long section way before
Right.
that actually started. And the reason that they did it, and this is something that Brian Azzarello really kind of drove home as he spoke, was that in the actual Killing Joke graphic novel, that Barbara Gordon does not have a story arc, and she's the only character that does not have a story arc. She's just there, the bad thing that happens to her happens, and then she is done in that
Right.
story. That's it. That's the end. And this, they're like, you know what? You need a connection to Barbara before this happens, especially people that aren't familiar with her as a character that are going in and seeing this. Or, I mean, even people that are familiar with it. It was so much better, and it was such a richer story, spending a lot of time with her before you go through the tragedy that she goes through.
Yeah, because in the original story, there's the presumption that you know about Barbara Gordon's backstory, Batgirl's backstory, and everything about her enough to care about her character and what happens to her. Whereas this actually plants the seed for you and develops the character, as you say, a little bit further within the movie so that you get to form a relationship with this character and care about what's happening versus just her being kind of a side character.
Yeah, and it definitely adds to, a lot of, Batman's point. And so based off the book and based off of the film, it's this whole parallel world that Batman and Joker had both gone through a tragic thing in their life, and how that tragic thing has changed them to become what they are.
Right.
And so
one bad day can...
Right.
One bad day could turn you into what the Joker is. Because he's saying...
Yeah, it can turn an ordinary man.
One bad day turned the Joker into what he became. So he's saying that you're no different than me.
Mhm.
He's saying, Batman, like, one bad day could turn you into me. So you're no better than I am. So to prove his point, his whole plot was to do as much as he could to kind of torture Commissioner Gordon to make him mentally break and prove his point that, one bad day, anyone could become him.
Right, because
to push him over the edge.
Because
Exactly.
Gordon is known for, he plays by the rules. He's all about the book, the law, and that, he is 100% this good guy. So he would be the perfect candidate to test out this experiment,
Right.
and to prove to Bruce and the whole world that this quote unquote ordinary man can also be broken down.
Right. And I think part of it too is him trying to prove what he perceives as the hypocrisy of what Batman is, basically.
Right. Yeah. So I think that also within this story, as we said, they do develop Batgirl's character a bit more before the tragedy occurs, and we can't go too deep into this right now. Just to preface this, we're going to talk about it very generally as a review first, and then we'll jump into a spoiler, maybe 5 minutes of spoiler at the end, but we will cut it off to the point where you will know we're about to spoil it, and you will get a countdown. And if you are still listening, this is your fault for it being spoiled.
Right.
If you get mad,
if you get mad, blame
it's
yourself.
your fault.
Yeah. But no, before that, we're just going to talk very generally. If you've read the story before, you'll know the majority of that, but we were not going to presume that you have entirely, so we're not going to go detail by detail. But
right.
Generally speaking, we can give it a good review.
And if you haven't read the graphic novel, that's won an Eisner award and everything since 1988. Come on, y'all.
Come on, you've had time.
Get your
we can't really say spoiler alert from 1988. Come on.
By the way, this episode is rated R. Just
yes,
like
the film is also rated R. If you bring your kids,
your kids probably don't.
We'll explain at the end, and in a spoiler detail.
You probably shouldn't have little kids watch this.
Not little kids,
No,
14-year-olds, it's okay.
Sure.
I think even 12 to 13 or something could still handle it.
Yeah.
But any younger than that
it's not graphic. A lot of it's kind of implication.
It's a lot of implication.
There's
and
implication, but there are some violence that's a little like, whoa, like some jump moments where you're like, holy cow.
Like the explosion on the boat. What happens
boat.
After? Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, before and after.
And there's a lot of gunplay that goes into it that it's like from one of the first scenes even. There's light cursing.
It's light cursing, but yes, it's definitely there. It's made for adults, for sure.
Yeah. It's made for adults, and you can feel that. You can feel the R there, but it's not a hard R. You know what I mean? It's like,
how about you read it and then decide if you're okay with your child watching it.
Okay, yeah.
Because the book itself is also graphic.
Yeah. I think just the R rating will kind of give people pause and be like, okay, maybe I should watch this before my kid does. So we're just saying definitely do, because there's enough to where.
Yeah, and we're about to tell you why it's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So just generally speaking, guys, let's give this a quick review of what we thought about it. Chris, do you want to go first?
Sure. It was beautiful, honestly. I mean, everything about it, the animation, the music, just gave it this feeling. And honestly, my favorite part about it was honestly the beginning that was not originally part of the story, the stuff that they added for Barbara. I think that's honestly, in retrospect, my favorite part, because they added so much depth to her character. And it wasn't all like good things. I mean, she made some mistakes, and they had Batman make some mistakes too, but it made you think that she's not a fictional character. It made you feel like you're watching a real person, because she did things and she said things and she reacted the way that, I see women that I know react. I mean, obviously these are extreme and exaggerated situations, but you're still getting the feel of like the thought process and stuff like that the character's supposed to be having, and it feels genuine and it feels real. To me, it felt like the most real portrayal of a character on an animated screen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was amazing what they did with it.
And what would you rate it?
I would rate it 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that putting Barbara's story together and her relationship as Barbara, not just as Batgirl, like when she's at the library and her friend and things like that, like the whole conversation, it's so genuine and at the same time very organic. It feels real. It's one of those that's how I talk with my gay boyfriend, and so I love it. I think what makes this film great, honestly, is because it's mostly heavy on Joker's origin. When you hear Mark Hamill playing not Joker, but his backstory, himself with his wife and the relationship and his doubts and stuff. It's very sensitive of like, okay, I kind of sort of hear the Joker, but I kind of hear an a normal human being, like that's not over exaggerated.
You hear some hints.
Right. Like it kind of sneaks through, especially when he's freaking out a bit. He's like, this is what you're thinking and this is what you see me as. And then
that's interesting to point out because that's a very talented voice actor.
Right.
One who, and that goes back to Mel Blanc even, because that's someone who can imitate or who can change the tone of their own, a voice that's not even their own.
Right.
To a tone that is like a lesser version of that.
Right.
It's like the Mel Blanc version of Daffy Duck acting like Bugs Bunny and something like that. So it's like a voice imitating another voice, and it's like, so this is regular Joker.
Exactly, but it's not Joker. It's
like
Joker.
It's
whatever. I guess no one really knows what his real name is. It's been like implemented that his name is Jack.
In the movies.
From the films, right? But like never on this film, like, you know, Brian could have written like his actual name, but they still kept it secret. Like even when he's locked up, it says, you know, like name unknown, right? So he is, you know, he's a John Doe in our world.
And it's also interesting because the Joker even says, and this is something that's known, is that, you know, he changes the story in his head sometimes to fit the narrative.
Oh my God, completely. Yeah, because you never know what's the actual truth.
That's one thing that I love about his character is that he's so far gone. And this is something that, you know, people with really high opinions of themselves,
right?
They tend to, even though they know the truth, they tend to think of certain situations differently than how they actually happened. And think because the reason is because they think of themselves in a certain way, so they kind of change the actuality or the reality of what happens to suit how they want to see themselves in their mind,
right?
Almost to justify their actions.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they're basically manipulative. You know, they're going to use what they can to get what they want, and you see that this person, in his origin moment, you know, like in his life before he had turned quote unquote evil. I mean, he was kind of sort of a bad guy. Like he was willing to do crime in order to get ahead.
But for a good cause.
For a good cause, but I mean, he's still crossing the line, basically.
It's to serve himself, but to serve, you know, his unborn child and wife, but it's to serve within himself.
There's two sides of that coin. Right. I mean, it's not a two-faced sword, but there's two sides of that coin because it's, you know, he's doing it presumably for his family, for his soon-to-be child,
right,
and his current wife.
I guess the thing there is, and the argument you could make is that so he is basically a failed comedian,
right,
who turns to doing something for like basically like the mob, to try to make easy money for his wife and his kid. But then there's also the argument that's like, okay, you know what? That's kind of noble in a way because he's trying to provide for his family. But there's also like, you know, and maybe if he's failing as a comedian, he needs to try something else. That doesn't mean he needs to go to crime.
Exactly.
So he makes that decision.
Like he had a job already. He quit his job in order to pursue what would be his dream.
And he decided to take the easy route and say, I'm going to help these guys steal some stuff.
Right.
And that's going to get me a lot of money, even though he's basically justifying
what he's doing. And it's one of those where like his wife wasn't even concerned. She was like, we got 2 months. We could still do this. Like she's giving options. She was supporting his career. And it just wasn't enough for him.
It basically came down to his own insecurities.
Yeah, his ego.
A husband and
I mean, and there are multiple perspectives that you could put on that, and you can play devil's advocate and agree with the side that went to crime, given the you know being pushed to the limit, kind of what the whole idea of the story is, and to different degrees,
right? And that's really like the beauty behind what Mark brought to life within that character is that you can see those things. You can see his or not see, but hear. You hear his insecurities. You hear how like you know these mobsters speak with him. You know, very degrading, and they just kind of talk down to him, and he's just kind of like, all right, like he's taking it. And it's just a weird position to hear like, oh my God, like someone is talking to the Joker and he's like about it.
Yeah.
And then how he becomes who he is and no one, like you know that the mob and everyone like is terrified of him now.
Yes.
So he's become this kingpin overnight, you know.
Yeah, it was basically like he was kind of ridiculed and he was kind of used by the mob before he became the Joker. So now that he is the Joker, he has basically made sure that that can never happen again because they are terrified of him.
Right.
So he's basically like conquered his own insecurities by becoming something that they feared when it originally was something that he feared instead.
And I think a lot of it was just kind of himself being kind of mentally unstable to where insecurity is not really something that's in his vocabulary anymore. Like he does what he does and he believes everything that he does is righteous and justified by his own insanity in a way.
Right.
He still has his own insecurities when, certain keys or certain buttons are pushed, and Batman is learning how to do that. And we see that happening towards the end even a bit. Yeah. But it's a learning process still. As long as they've been toe to toe with one another, it's still a learning process and getting to know each other as actual human beings versus just like black and white.
Yeah. One thing I really enjoyed was the dialogue between Joker in his flashbacks when he wasn't Joker yet, but that man and his wife, and that, she literally only said one thing. Oh,
yeah.
At this one part, and he freaks out.
His over exaggeration of it.
His insecurities. She just says the word "oh" when he says that he messed something up, and he just, you can tell how low self-esteem he has because he automatically assumes that she's ridiculing him, that she's disappointed in him. And it's really like, it's obviously just a reflection of how he sees himself,
right?
And that's very relatable because I've seen people react that way. And I've reacted that way for certain things before. I mean, it's a very human kind of reaction. And I've never really seen that portrayed so accurately before in not even just film, but
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it is one of those things where it's like, it's not what she said.
It's how
she said it. And
and that's what he was trying to say too. Exactly. He was like, no, I know what you said, but the way you said it was
her tone. And I can get that because Shaddai does that sometimes, I feel like. And that, again, that's probably my own insecurities, but it's like sometimes you're just at a point where you're like, the way someone else says something, it's not what they said. It's just like the tone that they use can really like just push that, just like the straw that breaks the camel's back, figuratively speaking. Shaddai, I'm sorry we keep kind of hijacking your review, but you're making good points that are kind of dry.
Oh yeah, this was my review.
Yeah.
No, like I've had that exact conversation with my wife before because like, I have a lot of anxiety. I'm an anxious person. So I mean, I have insecurities, and she'll say something every once in a while, and I will, the way she says something, like I will take a specific meaning to it, and it might be the exact opposite of what she's actually going for. And then I'll be like, oh, you meant this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling her what she meant. And she's like, no, like, you can't tell me what I meant by that because I know what I meant by that because I'm the one that said it. So, that definitely came through in that, and they did it really well.
Yeah, that's deep cuts. Basically.
Super deep cuts.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
But I thought it was great. I think that was what's really beautiful about this film is that the voice acting behind it, they put so much thought into it. And the same thing for like Kevin Conroy as Batman. And I loved, even though Alfred had just a small itty bitty part, but I loved his whole thing. It's like, Master Bruce, like, here's your dinner. Is there anything you need? Or do you want me to get
do you want me to leave?
Do you want me to leave? Yeah. But the same thing with like the tone and the way, the delivery of that was funny because it just sounded like, do you want me out of your face right now? Yeah. Are you over this?
Do you need to think?
Yeah.
And it was also a kind of like, you're not really listening to me.
You're not even listening to me.
Like I could say whatever
exactly. It's like, I'm just going through the motion. I'm just telling you, like, here's your food. I'll get out of here.
I love the line that he says where he says, you can't save everybody.
Yeah.
It's like Alfred is honestly, he's a realist.
Yeah.
And Batman is, even though the way he is, and though he's super dark, he's still, in a way, he's still an idealist.
Right.
He still wants to, and he makes it obvious, he still wants to be able to save the Joker. He knows that eventually one's going to kill the other, but he's still like, he's stubborn and he doesn't want to accept that. But Alfred knows, that's what's going to happen. It's inevitable. Alfred is like, I guess it depends on how he's written, but I think in most versions of Alfred, he's a war veteran. He knows how things go. So he's grounded in reality.
So if I were to rate this film, I too would give it a solid 5 out of 5.
I mean, we've kind of talked about a lot of what I would touch on, but I'll go a little bit more into Joker's side of things where, yes, the Batgirl portion was very strong and it was a great addition to this entire film. It made it really fluid, but I also think that there was padding added to the Joker's portion, to the whole last half of the movie, but it felt so natural, like it belonged there in the first place, that there wasn't a point where I could have said like, oh, that doesn't fit, like that puzzle piece is obviously misshapen because it doesn't go there. Like it felt natural the whole time, and the voice acting really added to that. Even the well, I won't say yet, but just all of it flowed so well together, and I think that just makes for such a great film. And it stuck so close to the source material, even to the point of the imagery and those certain panels sticking to Brian Bollard's original art. Oh my gosh, like that's so it's so recognizable.
It's iconic.
It is so iconic that you look at it and you're like, you get chills. There was actually there was applause when certain scenes came up because of just how recognizable they are.
Specifically during the flashback when he finally actually becomes the Joker, he comes out of that chemical plant and he starts, doing the lap and he's pulling his hair and the maniacal laugh.
Yeah.
Everyone applauded and cheered. Because it was so good.
It is. And that's like exactly like it is in the comics.
Yeah.
And so you can't do it if they would have done it another way, it would have kind of robbed from the scene. That just made it so, it just gave it so much weight. And it's like they were saying even in the talk a little bit beforehand, or maybe this is the one that was right after, where they were just like, you have to kind of stick to the source material to a certain extent, and it's a fine line because you want to add to it, you want to make certain updates and changes to kind of make the story fit a different format, but at the same time you have to stick to a certain portion of the story and the original stuff to make the original fans happy, to please us. And as original fans, and as an original fan myself, like this definitely hit all the right notes, and I think it gave me exactly what I wanted from it, and even more. So just to jump to mine real quick, I 5 out of 5 easily, like hands down.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it honestly has to do with Bruce Timm, be overseeing that art because we grew up with Batman the Animated Series and stuff and his art. And for him too, to having read The Killing Joke in 1988 and being like, no, like this is it. Like, you cannot change it. He's a huge fan, obviously.
He was even talking about like how they were trying to change some scenes, like the people who were setting up the storyboards, and he's like, no, this is good, but it's not Brian Bullard.
Yeah, and we're not doing that.
Stuff. Yeah, we're not changing that.
Yeah, so I love that. That was a smart move for sure on their part.
I gotta say, like, to me, this animation was as good as I hold the Dark Knight movie up very, very high because it's an excellent film. I mean, with excellent performances, especially everyone loves the Joker in that. By Heath Ledger. But honestly, this was as good, if not better, than that. This was the sequel that we needed to that film.
Yeah.
Especially because the way that they built tension in this equaled that, because and it has a lot to do with the music in that too. In the really tense scenes with the Joker in The Dark Knight, you hear that kind of like buzzing noise that just grows louder and louder and louder. And you're just on the edge of your seat because you don't know what he's going to do because he's insane. And he's, you can't predict what he's going to do. And they did that a lot in this too. There was this music that just kind of would build up and build up and build up. And in these really intense moments when you're like, even though you read the story, you're like, I don't know how this is going to play out. Like, this is going to be bad. This is something bad is really going to happen.
And that's definitely something they talked about. They're like, oh, holy shit, now we need a soundtrack to this. Like, what do we do?
It's also cautionary to an extent where it's like, even though you've read the original story, you're waiting to see if they used that part of it. You're waiting to see how they pulled it off. And there's nervousness to it, but also kind of excitement in a way that's like, if they did it the way that I'm hoping they did, this is going to be just amazing. And like I said, it hit every note that I wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So before we keep talking about it, let's go ahead and jump into the spoiler portion. So again, anybody listening right now, stop listening if you don't want to hear spoilers about this. If you do, for whatever reason, you haven't watched it yet, then keep on listening.
Are you a martyr? Like, what's wrong with you?
Come on, you're doing it to yourself.
Should we give them a countdown?
Yeah, we're going to give them
10 or something.
We'll do the Batman countdown. Yeah, he did like, I'm counting to 10. 1, 9.
Oh, yeah.
9.
9.
9.
9.
Okay. We're going to give you really 5 seconds, though. So before the spoilers start. So 5, 4, 3. That's a 1. 2, 1. And spoilers. Right now. Spoilers. Okay. Go.
So, and this is honestly like one of the things I want to talk about the most. And I can't not spoil things without talking about how this shaped Barbara's character and how we saw her. So she's making mistakes and Batman's making mistakes and she gets so upset and there's just this tension between the two for so long. And finally they come to blows and then she gets the better of him, throws him to the ground, and then she kisses him.
I was all about that. I was like, get it, girl,
and
get it.
Starts pulling off clothes, and you know what happens next.
Yeah,
I mean, they go for it.
That's part of the implication of it, where it's like, oh man, and the whole crowd just like,
And the thing is, so afterwards there was a Q&A, and somebody complained about it.
Oh my god, dude!
Like,
they were trying to make an argument that like, oh, you're trying to make this woman who's independent and strong, but then like, oh, she has sex, and you show her take her shirt off and all this shit.
And then she's pining over, and
she's pining over, and they're like, no, that was not at all the implications. Like, you read that wrong completely, because yes, she is this independent woman. She's strong. She feels very confident that she's better than anyone who's ever like assisted Batman as in any of the Robins, right? And so she's just like, no, like, I'm a much better fighter than they were, and I know she's also technologically, savvy, and she has that detective, like what Batman is, what Bruce is, like he does detective work.
Yeah, she's closer to being his equal.
She is, but she's still naive in a sense to where she as Bruce is kind of saying, she's still excited about it. She's not been pushed to the edge yet.
Right.
So she's still having quote unquote fun with it.
Right. She's still having fun because it challenges her. It challenges her as this woman, and she feels needed, and she feels that she can do something about it. So she's excited that she found a place in this world that, like, she has a purpose.
Yeah. And it's good to get your perspective on it too, Shaddai, because there was a lot of excitement coming from you. And after the fact, you had a question.
Yeah, I got up and I was like, and it had to deal with her, is that I was very grateful that they put her in that place, in that position, and in a woman that's very modern, right? Yeah. And it's her own prerogative. She's going to f*** if she wants to f***. And then she even says after, she's like, all right, if you're not going to call me, that's cool. Like, we made the mistake and that it was a one-night stand, and I just want to work. Like, she's like, she can see it as just sex. She can see it as it wasn't romantic. And I love that. I love that they put that
that's not just a woman specific thing. That's people just need closure sometimes to something, and Batman's
Exactly.
not giving that
Right.
to her in that sense. Like he won't talk to her
And
about
that's what
it.
makes him human too. That's also it's one of those where like when I talk with my girls about dating, it's like that motherfucker. Like be a man.
It
Be a
it was
man.
like when he was looking at the bat screen on
Yeah.
his
I
in his
know,
car,
and he's
I was like, is he
debating whether
gonna
to
just hang up
answer.
on
I
it?
know,
Yeah.
I know.
I think he wasn't sure what he was
Yes,
going to
exactly.
do yet.
He's like, she's
Yeah,
calling
'cause
me.
he's gonna be like, what
But
the fuck
she
do I say?
waited, like good on her. She waited like 3 days. And he was like, we haven't spoken in a few days. And you see her reaction when like this one guy is telling the girl like how clingy she is and that he needs space. And she was there to give him that space.
She gave him a space.
I know,
yeah.
but she was pissed, and I love that because basically that said it's like, all right, if you're gonna somebody, and even if it's a one night stand or not, or whatever the case, it's like, are we cool? Like, are we friends? You know, like I can still do my job and have a vagina, and I like, who cares?
Just need to know where we stand.
Right, where do we
Yeah.
stand? Like,
Exactly,
let's
that
stop
was the
making it
thing.
awkward. Like Batman was making it awkward.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
was totally
That's
cool.
not, yeah, and that's not pining. That's
No.
just being human.
Right. And that's something really interesting or really good that they pointed out at the end was like, yeah, this was a story where oftentimes Batman is blamed for, or the writers are blamed for making Batman too perfect. In this
Right.
case, he had
made
his
mistakes.
imperfections. He made mistakes.
Right, like he gave in to lust, and he gave
They may
in.
not have been visual mistakes that like everybody could see, but there's like, you get it if you're thinking about it on this level that, yeah, Batman shouldn't have hesitated to answer that call. He shouldn't have hesitated to talk to her about this.
Really, his relationships that are not like purchased, you know, like an escort or anything like that, is that he's really attracted to these strong women like Selena Kyle. She
exactly.
walks around with I don't need no man and kind of thing attitude, and he's attracted to her. Like she doesn't
Or
need
Talia
me.
al Ghul.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's these women who can protect themselves,
Yeah.
right? And they're not after it for him or anything. It's actually they're equal, you know.
Yeah.
And yes, this is Bruce who has a lot of money. Like they don't give a fuck that he's got money. Like they do their own thing, and it makes sense that he would have an attraction to Barbara. And I loved also that even after her being shot and paralyzed, that when she's in the hospital, his first reaction, like after he tells the cop to like leave, he touches her face. Like he
Mhm.
still feels there's like a sort of guilt. It's like I fucked up and I still care about her. And he just kind of grazes it and calls her Barbara, where the whole time he had been calling her Batgirl.
Right.
This is the time where he actually says her name, and it was very intimate.
Right. It gets more real to him.
Right.
And, you know, at that point, even though he's not admitting it, like he knows he messed up.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not to say that it was his fault at all what happened, but just that he should have approached their relationship differently to begin with.
Right. And it's one of those things too where it kind of mirrors what Alfred was telling him, is like you can't protect everyone. And I think in his eyes he was thinking Joker, like himself, like to change him, because when he has gone to the cell and he's saying like, hey, you know, I want to make amends. I don't want to kill you. Like I need to know how this is going to end. And then the whole thing of protecting Barbara from this fucking douchebag, whatever.
Paris, France.
Yeah.
Paris, France.
I know. Like this douchey guy who with all this money, like he was trying to protect her from him.
Right.
And then let alone like the main villain is what gets her. And when she's not in uniform.
Yeah. And he was a new addition for anybody still listening for whatever reason. If you haven't watched this, he was a new addition to this in the Barbara story at the beginning of this.
Right. And this is what
essentially,
built the relationship. It like pushed.
He was the parallel
Right.
to Batman's Joker. He was a lesser version of the Joker because he's making it personal. He is the one who's just like, can't take anything seriously
And
Right.
pushing it too
and
far.
pushing it too far.
Right.
And he was a lot more of a threat than I thought he would be.
Yeah.
Like, he really kind of one-upped everybody
Yeah, at
several
first he
times.
just seemed like just one of those annoying henchmen.
he
types.
seemed like a throwaway character, but man, he like really pushed.
He was able to
everything.
stand toe to toe with Barbara at the beginning.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely. He
And,
got
like,
the better of her originally.
He did,
so.
and that was kind of a scary thing where you didn't see that coming, but then you're like, "Oh, how's she gonna get out
Right,
of this?"
I know.
love the way she reacted though, like by sealing herself from the vault.
Right, smart girl.
Yeah.
That was very smart.
That was very smart. I thought that too. And I was like, oh, girl, don't suffocate. Like get help now.
Yeah.
Just from a guy's perspective, because that one person complained that her having sex with Batman
belittled her.
Yeah, belittled her, made her character weaker. And I agree with Brian Azzarello. I think it made her stronger because it wasn't like she gave in to something.
No.
It was this is what I want. And
Right.
she took
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
She pursued
That's
it.
why. I was like, get it. Get it, girl.
It was a lot about her personal strength and her, growing more, becoming stronger as a person in different ways on different levels. And we saw that throughout the movie. And that was something that was really great for her character versus what that person was saying at the end of the panel, at the end of the Q&A, where they essentially were belittling her character by saying that they thought she was being belittled. Like it was from their perspective, they were making it out to be something that it just wasn't. And nobody else agreed with that. Nobody saw that.
Yep. I don't think anyone else in that room was offended by that at all. I think everyone else saw it as like, she said, this is what I want. I'm taking it.
I think that this is a person who's looking at things very black and white. And like I said, it's not that a lot of these things need to be shown. They're just, you understand them as from just a human perspective. Like you understand the thought process, you understand the feelings.
Right. And she actually explains that in a very, this is what makes Brian such an amazing writer. Like anyone who's ever read any of his books, whether it's 100 Bullets or Joker or Luther, whatever it is, that the way he wrote her in when she's having this conversation with her gay boyfriend is talking about yoga, right? Like this is a yoga class or whatever. She's saying like, and he's trying to be very logical. He's like, why are you in it? Like, why are you even doing this if you're having this fight with your yoga instructor? She's like, I love the class. Like, you don't understand. I am the best person in that class and he will not let me, show that. And so she's telling him that, she's in it not for Bruce. She's not in it for Batman. She's in it because she's in it for herself. It's something she loves. It's something that she gets out of. She gets something out of it and it's very fulfilling. And so you already know that her motive had nothing to do sexually. It was just, she felt that there was a cause that she can actually protect and be a part of. Mm-hmm. And so when the sex actually happens, you knew right then and there, it's like, oh, this is just a perk, it wasn't a cry for plea or anything. It wasn't that like, oh, she's been sexually horny for whatever. Well, it's like all of a sudden she felt like, you know what?
She felt the need right there.
Yeah, why not?
She was like, I'm going to go for it.
It was just two people who were very strong and who were
it was a very animal instinct kind of thing,
And even the way she described the aftermath of it was like, sparks flew. Like it was great. It wasn't about this. It's not the fact that the sex was bad. It's just that like the aftermath is what I have problems with. Lack of resolve.
Right. But I mean, aside from, that wasn't the only thing why it was rated R. There was definitely some bloodiness to it. People getting shot in the head and like amputation,
hands flying.
A flying severed hands at one point.
Okay, we're doing this.
Surprised.
This is where we're
it's
going.
Where you don't know how far they're going to push it, and they push it there. And you're like, oh man,
yeah.
Like,
oh my god.
Expect it.
And like, if you see the cover of The Killing Joke, you would see that it's the Joker with the camera on his face, and then you don't realize
with the Hawaiian wear.
Yes, and you don't realize like what is he doing and why that picture is there. So when the portrayal when the portrayal happens, why he's dressed up that way, it's right after he shoots Barbara and he's unbuttoning her shirt, right? And so already
the implications.
The implications there. Mm-hmm. You're like. And there's this kind of slight nervousness as of like, did he rape her?
There's still that. I mean, that's still up for question. That's really good writing and really good storytelling where it's like you're not sure, even though they show it and you think that may have happened.
I think that a line that they gave Bullock kind of.
Well, she was in various states of undress, yes, but was it the fact that he did, or was it that he wanted them to think he did?
Well, I think the thing was that when Batman questioned it, because Bullock said they found her in a state of undress, and Batman goes, a state of undress, and Bullock kind of pauses and he goes, they didn't tell you.
Yeah.
And that's the line that made me think, yeah.
That they probably did a rape test and she probably was raped. And then Brian wrote in his book, The Joker, there's a scene where the Joker does rape one of his henchmen's wives.
Yeah.
And, we see that and it's explicit and you're like, he is a rapist.
Well, that's even in the original story too,
Right.
where there's the pictures and you see what may have happened, but they don't go into details of it or tell you specifically that it did. Just like, well, it probably did.
Right.
But yeah, they don't.
They don't confirm. I mean,
the other thing they don't confirm, which is still up for question, of course, is the very end, which, of course, if you've ever read the story, you kind of, and it's always been up in the air, is whether or not Batman killed the Joker at the end.
Right. Yeah. It's still up. And I think he didn't.
I mean, I feel like he didn't, and I think that would keep the story stronger.
Right.
If he didn't.
Right.
Because it's almost like a case of like, if he did, then the Joker kind of wins, because that's him being pushed to the Batman being pushed to the edge and proving the Joker right.
And that was the whole thing that Gordon was trying to tell him, is like, prove to him, like, Gordon goes through all this shit, right, where he is completely naked. He goes through basically a funhouse of horror and is shown the pictures of Barbara completely nude and shot. Like he was there when she got shot and all this other stuff. And he's still not broken. Like Joker did not get to him. And he is fighting for the law to be in stone. And he's telling us, like, make sure that our way works. Let him know that our way works.
The only way Joker doesn't win is if Batman
does it by the books.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I did like that they still used the joke at the end where Batman was laughing.
Right.
That was good. That was very pleasing for sure. Yeah. It was very pleasing. So I think, he just went back to Arkham. And that's the thing, is that the Joker knew. He's like, you're not going to kill me. And that was it. He's like, well, before you leave, before you take me away. And he says his joke. And that was priceless.
Yeah,
it was
killing
wonderful.
Joke. Yeah. And also, let's touch on the scene at the end that after everybody got up for some reason.
Oh my God!
Like, how do you not see that coming?
How do you not stay for credits or anything?
Yeah.
God. So the scene at the end is the way the film started. It started with Barbara and it ends with Barbara.
Yeah.
And this is her in her wheelchair coming in, and she's on the phone with her father, saying like, oh, like she had squash and she, like she's still going out and she's doing things.
It's her adapting to, since we haven't said it already, her new life of being paraplegic.
And then when she goes into her home and goes into her office, her new and improved office, we are
Oracle.
As the Oracle,
that's where
which was
everybody cheered. And that's again, that's still showing, even though she is physically a different person, that doesn't make her any less strong. It makes her stronger.
It makes her stronger.
She's still out there to do the job.
Right. Because this is one of those things where, Joker's trying to prove, like trying to with Gordon, right? But at the same time, almost like fucking with her. Like she too had a bad day. She gave up her uniform that day. She got shot. Her father gets taken away. She has no idea where he is. She may or may not have gotten raped. We don't know. And at the end, in her state, like listening to the doctor and hearing that I'm paralyzed, I'm never going to walk again, she's telling Batman, she's like, go find my father. Don't stay here. Go find him.
Mention or even question what happened to her.
Yeah,
she's all
she
about go find my dad.
Yeah,
right.
Like that's the most important thing right now. I'm alive. Fine. Go find my father.
Yeah. So she still has that resolve.
Yeah.
And hers wasn't broken. Commissioner Gordon's wasn't broken. And hopefully Batman's wasn't broken. And he didn't kill Joker at the end.
Yeah. And that was what's so great. And those who don't know who the Oracle is that she is basically, she's Batman's right-hand man, like in his ear. And she does her detective work and she still tells him like where things are.
That's just using her tech savvy.
Right.
And I think that at that point they're showing that she is definitely now his equal because we said before that Batman told her that line that you're enjoying this, you're enjoying what you do, and because you haven't been taken to the edge of the abyss yet,
right?
You haven't been taken too far to where it's no longer a I want to do this, it's a I have to do this
Right.
sort of thing. She was still doing it, was still I want to do this for her.
Right.
And this whole movie was basically that journey of her being taken to that abyss
Mm-hmm.
and not falling in. So by the end, you know, she is basically like, you know, it's a need to now.
Right.
It's this is what I do. This is what I have to do.
This is what I'm good
Right.
So
at.
she is now on his level, basically.
Yeah.
Mhm. Anything else anyone else wants to say? We gave our reviews. We love the movie. 5 out of 5 overall rating. Any closing comments?
Is there any other stories that you would want to see adapted this way?
Oh my goodness.
Because I've got so many.
Hush. I've always wanted Hush to be.
Hush
Oh
would
my
be
God!
great.
Like
Yeah, Hush would be
I
great.
want that to be either live action or cartoon. Either
I would love
either
a live
way.
action Hush.
That would
because
be really
I feel
cool.
like Hush could be the most threatening Batman villain.
Yes, I
Yeah.
mean
Because
it's
he
so-
knows his secret.
Yes, he knows his secret. This is his childhood best friend
Mhm.
that he grew up with.
Thomas Elliot.
Yes, and who's a doctor and all this, and then turns into this villain
He's-
and with him.
What I love about that is the parallel between like he and Bruce are like raised
Brothers.
on almost the exact same way.
Right.
Exactly.
And then he takes he just takes the negative path.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was out of jealousy. It was jealousy
Right,
that,
exactly.
you know, it's like his parents brought him in because he just lost his, and the whole like, my parents love you more kind of thing. And it's,
Well,
you know,
also that Bruce got all that inheritance because his
Right.
parents died. So he's like, all right, well, I'll fix that myself. And
yeah.
oh,
But I mean,
yeah.
Thomas Elliot was also a rich kid. So
Yeah.
like his parents were friends with his friend, you know, and they were doctors
Yeah.
and like that.
He's basically the
He was a
exact
bratty
opposite.
kid. Yeah, he was the brat rich kid, but also very manipulative. You know, pretended to like, no, yeah, we're cool. Yeah, we're brothers. Sure. Yeah, all this other bullshit.
Yeah, he's the path that Bruce could have been.
Yes,
Right, exactly.
Could
So.
easily.
He's just Bruce's dark side.
And that's
I
why
know.
I'm disappointed that they didn't use him in like the third movie or something. And I hope they bring him up eventually because I truly believe that he could be the biggest threat.
Yeah, I think he could be, because what I loved about, you know, that graphic novel reading was that Bruce was also doing his detective work, right? Like he's going through all the villains that you start seeing. You're like, oh my God, he's talking to everybody and he's trying to figure out like who is trying to work with me? How did they get to the Batcave? How did all this other stuff? Who is leading me all this? And it was right in front of him the entire
Right.
time. And that was so great, is that he, you know, like he could not fathom that this guy, his best friend, you know, his brother would be doing this. And that was what's really cool, is that once the reveal happens, you yourself, you're like, that's cold.
That would be great if that was adapted to an
Yeah.
animated
Yeah.
or live action feature.
Yeah.
For me, it would be Nightfall, just because I love, that's my favorite Bane story ever. I mean, as long as they don't use Bane from the third movie or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
if
they
keep
kind of
it-
did a little bit of Nightfall in it, but not much.
you
Just,
want a more Spanish?
I ignore
just
that.
the breaking the
I
back.
ignore
thing.
that movie.
Right,
Yeah, I
right,
need
true.
more. I need my Bane to be
A giant luchador.
a
the giant
huge
luchador.
luchador. Yeah.
like he's more threatening to me than this other dude was. So yeah, I need this Bane, and I need him to break Batman's back.
Yeah.
I need Azrael to come in. I need all those other people to be
Azrael
trying
would
to
be great to
replace.
see.
Mhm.
You know, I need him to replace Batman and make it to where, you know, he is the Batman that people think they want, but it turns out like that's not the way it is, and that's
Right.
not. You know, and so just Nightfall was just an awesome storyline.
Yeah.
I would love for that to be animated, and I know they talked about it, and they don't have any plans for it in the future, but one
Eventually.
one
Yeah.
day.
I've got so many to piggyback off of Hush, because it was written by the same people. The Long Halloween would be one I would love to see
That's a
Yeah.
good one.
as an animation. One, because you get to see the whole Rogues Gallery.
Yeah.
It's a great detective story.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what people forget, is that he's a detective
Yeah.
first.
All of the Nolan films, they missed that completely.
Oh, my God.
He was not a detective at all.
yeah.
And The Long Halloween is probably one of my favorite like detective actual like stories for Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Also, just because they take Batman to that extreme dark place, the Black Mirror and Court of Owls.
Oh,
would
the
be-
Court of Owls.
Court of
Yes.
Owls, yeah.
That is so surreal too. Like it's scary. Like but it has that sort of Stanley Kubrick, Eyes Wide Shut feel kind of thing. It's like, the masks, and you don't know these elite people.
And what I love about the Court of Owls too, and it's something that he says a lot in the actual in the graphic novel, is that Batman feels that he knows Gotham.
Right.
He knows the city, and then by the end he realizes, I don't know Gotham.
I know.
And that shakes him to his core. That's what gets to him, and that's why they get the upper hand on him, is because they basically pull the rug out from under him, and no one's been able to do that before.
Yeah.
So,
I think he just kind of like let his ego grow, or because he's been in the city for so long and he's got ears and eyes everywhere. Like he thinks he knows the shit, but Cordell, it's underground, and unless you're,
it was unexpected.
Yeah, completely. It was completely unexpected.
This is the first time he's been really caught off guard.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so great about them compared to many of the villains, is that, you can always expect the Joker to be crazy, nuts, and do something lavish. And because he's very eccentric that way, you could always expect, the Penguin to be very smart and mischievous with what he does. Like he knows who he's fighting. He knows everybody's flaws, and he knows what to expect from them. But yeah, when Court of Owls came out, it was a game changer for everybody, all viewers.
Yeah, I mean, that even took him back to his childhood.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it like that, and that's something that he'd been pursuing that just comes back up out of nowhere. And
right.
That would be just an interesting story. Because I don't think a lot of people know that story the way they do the other.
And it
ones.
also plays with it plays with Dick Grayson's origin.
Oh my God,
also,
Grayson,
right?
yeah.
And that it really kind of not really changes your opinion on him, but you kind of see that the background of some of these families, they're not nearly as pristine as you thought they were.
Right. I mean, yeah, like they've been in the shadows much longer than Batman ever has. And that's just kind of it, is that's why he thought he knew everything. Like that everything would have happened right after him, but everything was going on way before him, like during his father and just
a little bit. They actually do have a Court of Owls animated movie, to some degree at least. It's a Batman and Robin one with Damian in it, but yeah, it's essentially the same story.
Yeah, they definitely play on that, but
it's still good. I like it.
It's great. I mean, if you don't know who they are or whatever, it's almost putting a face to the legend of what the Illuminati is out there. Like everyone talks about it, but no one knows if it exists. It's just always a theory, a conspiracy. Yeah, so
apparently,
it's really cool.
They are doing something about Court of Owls in Gotham, like the TV show. I don't know what exactly, because they're doing so much stuff before he even becomes Batman that it doesn't make that much sense. But
to
whatever.
do Court of Owls with that, I think would be a mistake, because part of the heavy portion of it, like I was talking about a little while ago, is the fact that it's something that it's left unresolved in Bruce's childhood, and so it takes him up until adulthood to actually find out what this is all about, what this association. So to make it something that happens while he's a kid, I would just kill it. Like that would just kind of make it pointless.
Well, Gotham does a lot of that, unfortunately.
Oh my God, I know.
But before we get into rants about Gotham, any closing comments from anybody?
Definitely worth watching in theaters. Oh my God, what an experience.
Oh yeah.
It comes out on Monday and Friday. I don't know when this is going to be, or Monday and Tuesday. I don't know when this is going to be aired.
Probably tomorrow morning.
Oh, sweet.
Hopefully.
Yeah, definitely worth. It's only going to be in theaters on Monday and Tuesday. It'll be out on Amazon or wherever it is you can purchase it. But
August 2nd is when it comes out on Blu-ray.
And it's worth owning. Definitely worth owning.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, watch it with a group of friends who've read the book. Get your brains blown out, like, but it'd be like
not literally,
but
just have your brains blown out.
Yeah, but just like the madness of watching this graphic novel. It's almost like it's like when you're a kid and your favorite book is this pop-up book and you can play with it. You're just like, oh my God, there's life to it.
Seeing this story brought to life.
Yeah.
Let it blow your mind. Don't get your brains blown out.
Let it blow your mind, but don't blow your brains out yourself.
Not... And also for like the Joker to be singing, that's actually a cool little
they
thing.
did have a song in there.
Cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
Creepy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is.
Ooh, this Joker was not a fun Joker.
No,
Yeah.
this was the insane. I've finally gone too far, Joker.
Yeah.
Just this is just totally off of what we're talking about, but just for everyone listening, we will get back to our anime schedule because we were doing anime month, but circumstances had to make us switch things up. Joseph and I moving had to have us push it a week, and then Comic-Con is having us push another week. So we're still going to do all the requests that we got.
You know
So
what?
we'll get back
Conveniently,
to
this is going to come out on Saturday morning. So
Yeah.
this will kind of make sense.
How would you like to close it?
I mean, there's nothing I can really say more than we've already said. Watch this movie. Actually, you should have watched this if you're still listening right now. You've watched this movie, but good on you. If you agree,
Good on.
Yeah.
yeah. Have you never heard that expression?
I have. It just makes me laugh every time because it just sounds so silly.
Okay.
It is.
Yeah.
Comment to us. Let us know how you felt about it. If you thought differently,
And look for Nerd Sloth instead of BS Excluded.
yeah.
Look
Nerd
for
Sloth's
it.
going to be our thing now. So BS Excluded is dying. It got its brains blown out.
Ah,
The
it
Killing
did
Joke blew its
not.
brains
it
out.
did not. It's
No.
just
No, it's being softly
just taking a
retired.
nap.
It's taking a nap.
It's taking a nap. It's taking a slothy.
yeah,
Yeah.
slow. nap.
So, to go to social media and look for Nerd Sloth, and you're gonna start seeing all of our updates on there. Instead, we're gonna stop updating the BSX stuff so that we can move on to bigger, slothier things.
It has evolved as a network into a sloth.
Yes,
Devolved? I don't know. We'll see.
I think we evolved. They used a moonstone and evolved us into
yeah.
a nerd sloth.
Now we're hairy.
Must have been. Yeah.
I've always been hairy. Sorry.
Now we're lazier than normal. All right. Well, thank you, Shaddai, for jumping in. with
Yeah,
us.
thanks for inviting
This
me.
is a lot of fun.
Appreciate it.
And you got to jump in another
I
episode.
was gonna say
with
by
us.
inviting, like you're just in our hotel room.
Yeah,
So I mean,
thanks
you're
for
pretty much
letting
gonna be there
me
anyway.
Yeah.
Sleep.
Yeah, thanks for jumping in on the mic that was open.
Yeah.
All right, open mic night.
All right. Well, our milk supply has now run dry, so it's time for us to say goodbye. And once again, I'm Joseph,
I'm Chris.
I'm Shaddai.
and we'll see you next Saturday or sometime in between. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, sometime.
Maybe
We'll see you
we will see
sometime.
you on a future date. Bye.
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 Presented by Nerd Sloth.
A place for lazy nerds.
If you like what you heard, consider donating at patreon.com/nerdsloth so we can continue bringing you quality shows. Be sure to also leave us a review and share your favorite episodes and clips on social media. If you're looking for more content, visit us at nerdsloth.com.